Since I was a small child, I had always enjoyed Courage the Cowardly Dog, the cartoon following the adventures of a small, cowardly, yet courageous and pink dog who lives in the fictional town of Nowhere with his two owners, Eustace and Muriel Bag. Last week, a friend of mine arrived at my home. Upon greeting each other, he presented a disc to me. "I know how much you like this show, so take this," he said, placing the disc in my palm. He then left without a single word. I ran into my house, and before placing it in my player, I read CTCD S5 EP1. My excitement grew to an unbearable level. I hastily placed the disc into my player, turned it on, and without warning, the opening introduction began. It played just as it did in the first 4 seasons, though towards the end, instead of pulling out a mask and scaring Courage, Eustace walks over to the television, turns it off, and walks out the front door of the farmhouse, seeming angrier than normal. Afterwards, the title card showed. It featured Courage in a running position, looking back at a man with a mask chasing him with a chainsaw. Above the image showed Lost Courage, seemingly written in blood. Then it cut to the exterior of the farmhouse. It was nighttime and there was a dense fog making the farmhouse hard to see. It then cut to the living room, where Courage was, as usual, lying on Muriel's lap, while Eustace was nowhere to be seen. It stayed like that for 2 minutes, the only sound coming from the rocking of Muriel's chair in the wind outside. Then suddenly the front door opened and a hooded figure wearing a mask walked into the farmhouse holding a chainsaw. Courage then let out a realistic ear-piercing scream. The figure then started the chainsaw and pointed to Courage and then to his own neck, silently threatening Courage. Even though chainsaws aren't that quiet. The figure then held the chainsaw in the air and began to run to the pink dog. Screaming again, Courage sprints out of the farmhouse with the figure still pursuing him. After a while, the figure chases Courage to the roof of the barn. Out of energy, Courage collapses and lies on the roof. He then wearily states, "Who are you?" The figure then removes the mask and hood, revealing the face of a seemingly joyful Eustace. He then brings the chainsaw down onto Courage. Realistic blood and organs begin to fly and spray everywhere. This continued for 30 seconds. I did no more than sit and watch, wondering who in the right mind would make something like this. Once the murder had ended, it cut to an image of Courage with red, glowing, hyper-realistic eyes, lying in a pitch-black background. Areas of his body are nothing but skeleton, pouring blood and other organs onto the ground. After minutes of this, it faded to Eustace sitting in his chair with a stuffed Courage by his side. He then began a long, evil laugh. After a few seconds, Muriel ran into the living room and out the front door, holding 2 cases. It seemed to me as if she was leaving. Eustace laughed until he heard the truck starting up outside and driving away. His laugh began to turn into a cry as he turned to the stuffed Courage. In his sadness, he says, "What did I do?" He picked up the stuffed Courage and hugged it. "I'm so sorry, Courage. Can you ever forgive me?" The screen began to show static, and for a few seconds it showed an angry ghost-like Courage standing at the bottom of the stairs. Then, with more static, it returned to normal. 1 minute after it cut to Eustace with a sad expression on his face, hanging in the attic for the remainder of the episode. His crying, Courage howling, and the wind was heard in the distance. The credits rolled silently until the very end, in which "You will never be forgiven" was whispered in an unidentifiable voice. I could then see why they assigned my friend to dispose of the disc. Though I still wonder who the sadistic fuck was that made this. Thanks for listening. See me next Friday for another creepypasta. Unless I forget.